All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Kasparian with you guys. So obviously we have an enormous show for you filled with details about Donald Trump's coronavirus status, as well as the status of many of the folks in the Republican Party, as that party has been decimated by coronavirus. Weird coincidence that they're the ones who weren't following very simple medical guidelines on it. So we'll have those details coming up. First, I want to tell you about two things. As I've been doing live video updates throughout the weekend on these issues, I've been telling you about membership, and that sustains us. But the other program that sustains us is tyt.com/go. So we're trying to raise $200,000. We're really proud that we've maintained all of our employees throughout, but really you should be proud because the folks at Go made that happen. So, and we want to finish strong, and it's really important to get our progressive message out there, especially at a time like this. So let's check it on the thermometer to see where we are. So for this month, it's 20,697. It'd be, we just got started, but and if you think 200,000 a month is a lot, first of all, it's just for this year. Second of all, it's actually 10% of what just PragerU gets from right-wing billionaires every month. So you guys are better than the billionaires, and I'd much rather owe you than them. Okay, so last thing about a programming note is really fun on Tuesday, next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna bring on all of the old school TYT hosts, me, Ben Mankiewicz, JR Jackson, Anna, Jesus, and Dave Kohler. He's come back too, and we're calling it the TYT Tarantino special. Why? Because it's gonna have alternate histories of what would have happened, kind of like Tarantino does in his movies, if we had made other decisions. I guarantee you will love that special. Check it out next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. right here. All right, Anna, let's get started.
All right, lots to get to today. Donald Trump is furious at his 28th chief of staff, Mark Meadows, which means we're in for another edition of As the White House Turns.
Some very big mistakes. I asked for his resignation.
I'm disappointed in the Attorney General.
Now, Donald Trump has left Walter Reed Medical Center earlier than people expected, and we still have a giant question mark as to what Donald Trump's true condition really is. He seems to be downplaying it for political reasons, whereas there's some mixed messaging coming from people closest to Donald Trump. In fact, over the weekend, there was some mixed messaging from the White House doctor versus what we were hearing from his chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Now, his doctor seemed to make it look as though Trump was doing fine. Mark Meadows, it was a different story. Meadows is now widely known inside the White House to be the unnamed source who spoke to reporters following the medical briefing Saturday, just this past weekend, and offered a more dire assessment than Navy Commander Dr. Sean Connolly had given shortly before. The reporting was initially given to a pool of reporters attributed to an official familiar with the president's condition. Later, both the Associated Press and the New York Times identified that official as Meadows. So, the doctor comes out and he's like, and we'll show you the videos. Like he's doing well. He's doing well. No big deal. No big deal. Reporters are asking him, okay, has the president been put on oxygen? No, he hasn't been on oxygen today. Okay, but was he on oxygen earlier? No, he's doing fine. Everything's great. Don't worry about it. Totally like downplaying what's going on. And then Meadows gave a much more dire assessment. So now Trump is apparently angry with Mark Meadows for telling the American people the truth about his condition and not going along with this downplaying message, attempting to make Trump seem like the strong president who's invincible, even though he's in his 70s and coronavirus is something that would negatively impact him. Like his demographic is the one that's most vulnerable to the virus.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the orange demographic, and they have been devastated in this coronavirus situation. Okay, so look, to give you a sense of how panicked the Republicans are over the election, today John Cornyn, running for re-election in Senate in Texas, the number 2 senator for the Republicans in the whole country, came out and defied Donald Trump. and said he got out over his skis on coronavirus, exposed himself too much. But most interestingly, he said the most important thing you have to do is be honest with the American people, thereby implying that the president keeps lying. Okay. Now, guys like Cornyn back guys like Mark Meadows because they think traditional politics is, look, we play around the edges, and we change the framing, we change the context, we change the words. We do all these sophisticated ways of lying. But when you just flat out say something that's wrong about your medical condition, they're gonna find out, you knucklehead. And so stop lying in obvious ways and ruining it for all of us. Cornyn is worried about his reelection. We told you last week, the governor of Texas changed the rules on where you could submit mail-in voting because they're worried not just about Trump losing Texas, which is unbelievable, but Cornyn losing his Senate seat. That's how worried they are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And keep in mind that it's not just about Donald Trump's condition. We're talking about a highly contagious virus, a virus that he's exposed so many other people to, including over the weekend through some of the, some of the stunts he pulled, which we'll talk about later. But anyone who goes against Donald Trump's lies or calls him out publicly will have to deal with his fury later. And based on what sources have told CNN, People are concerned about what Trump is going to do to Meadows as soon as he has an opportunity to come off the steroids he's on. So according to one source, actually, Mark Meadows, let me tell you what he said to reporters. The president's vitals over the last 24 hours were very concerning, and the next 48 hours will be critical in terms of his care. We're still not on a clear path to full recovery. So that is what he told reporters on Saturday. On that same day, we got a very different message from his doctor. And as a result, Jim Acosta is reporting that a separate White House official confirmed Trump is unhappy with Meadows, as the chief of staff is now viewed by Trump advisors as having damaged the credibility of the current medical briefings on the president's bout with the coronavirus. And I want to give you a little taste of what the doctor's messaging looked like and sounded like over the weekend, and just how different it was from what we just read from Mark Meadows' statement. Take a look.
Receiving no, he has not received any supplemental oxygen.
He's not on oxygen right now. That's right.
He has not received any at all.
He's not needed any this morning today at all. That's right.
If we just put you down on one thing, has he ever been on supplemental oxygen?
Right now he is not on
I understand.
oxygen.
I know you keep saying right now, but should we read into the fact that he had been previously?
Yesterday and today he was not on oxygen.
So he has not been on it during his COVID treatment.
He's not on oxygen right now.
And Cenk, even though we did get mixed messaging over the weekend, I think even by watching that video, it's pretty clear that Trump isn't doing as well as he wants the public to think he's doing, right? I mean, his doctor could barely keep a straight face while answering those questions. And again, what he was trying to say does conflict with what his own chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was saying about Trump's condition.
Okay, I have an important point to make about that at the end here, but in answering your question, I actually want to go to one of our members as well. So tyt.com/join, and we read your comments as part of the show. Tatiana in Japan asked, honest question, was Meadows telling the truth, or is he used to lying for Trump, that he lied to make Trump seem much sicker than he is? This is especially concerning if everyone is lying and Trump doesn't actually have COVID. No, he has COVID. There are too many people involved to maintain that level of a lie. No, that's point one. Point two is Meadows lying instead? No, because Trump is furious with him. So he was not lying on behalf of Donald Trump. Secondly, as Anna just showed you, and the video clearly speaks for itself, the doctor's the one that's lying. And he's put in an awful position. And he said, the next day after the video you just watched, he came out and said, the things we said were not necessarily untrue, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And so it's super clear. It's the doctor who's lying. And look, I know he's in a terrible spot because Trump will probably replace him with a different doctor if he doesn't lie on his behalf. But you are a doctor. You're not under, you shouldn't lie on behalf of your patient, even if your patient's the president. So I know he's in a tough spot. Speaking of members, these are folks who just signed up on YouTube. Kevin Thompson, Shells, Abidi Fo Whimsy, there's no way you say that. Glennial Luster, Jackie Sutton, Queen Moniker, John Bickford, Bill Basseri, Ms. T Velocity, Tea Time 98, Mark Parson, and Brett Whitaker. Hit the join button below. These are all folks who did that in the middle of this segment. Now, I want to go back to Mark Meadows. Guys, I've now read a number of stories where he's deeply frustrated. Just like we told you before in another As the White House Turns segment, no one believes that Donald Trump is as stupid and petulant and irrational and mean as he actually is. Even the deepest supporters he has, the right-wing guys, they go in, they go, no, he's not that. I know he's dumb, but he's not that dumb. I know he's mean, but he's not that mean. He's not gonna do it to me, right? And Mark Meadows walks in, boom, right away. And you could tell, even when the doctor was talking on the last day, Mark Meadows, there's a great picture of Mark Meadows with his head down like this, okay? Which perfectly summarizes his existence in the Trump White House. Everything he's telling folks behind the scenes is, what have I gotten myself into? The guy's basically a lunatic. And so to be fair, there are no direct quotes like that about him being Mark Meadows calling Trump a lunatic. I want to be clear about that. But based on his quotes, that's my interpretation of what he's saying, because he's clearly deeply frustrated that he cannot get the president to tell the truth at all, or to have a coherent strategy which would help the Republican Party at all. And last comment is from Cable Plasky using Super Chat. I'm gonna miss As the White House Turns when Trump loses. It's my favorite show.
Well, don't worry. Brett cooked something up to take its place, and I think you guys are gonna love it. And maybe it's gonna premiere on this show today. We'll see. But I do want to mention one other thing. Remember, they tried literally every experimental medication or treatment on Donald Trump while he was in the hospital. And even though he's leaving the hospital today because he insisted on it, he's going to the White House where he's going to have treatment around the clock. There's a clinic within the White House. There are doctors within the White House. So it's not as though he's some average citizen who's gonna leave the hospital and not necessarily even have the option to go back, right? Without doctors and people taking care of him at home. He's gonna be taken care of. He's still gonna receive the medical treatment that he needs. Just don't let him make you think that coronavirus is no big deal, because he's already begun with that kind of messaging. And it's incredibly damaging to people who do not get the same type of healthcare treatment that Donald Trump is getting right now. So speaking of all the stunts, let's move on to our next story. Over the weekend, we saw Donald Trump engage in a number of stunts to message to the American people that even though he tested positive for coronavirus, he's fine. He's still working really, really hard. But people are actually really upset about some of those stunts, including one of them, which involved a joyride with Trump's Secret Service inside an SUV with him. Again, he's still positive for COVID-19. It's still a lethal virus, and all he wanted was the optics of a president who's not sick, and he's risking people's lives to do it. So let's take a look at what that scene looked like over the weekend. And his supporters loved it. I mean, there were definitely people outside of Walter Reed, his supporters with their giant Trump flags, and here he is greeting them.
God bless our president. I will die for him. I will die for that man, happily. I will die for him. Anybody want to mess with him, you mess with me first. He is a hero, that man. Look at it. Guys, Gatling guns in here, missile launchers. God bless America. God bless you guys. God bless. God bless the police. God bless you guys. God bless. That was the greatest. He passed right by you folks. He passed right there. He was there. I swear to you guys. Right there.
Okay, I just want to be clear. The guy saying I'll die for him was not part of the Secret Service. The Secret Service is charged with potentially taking a bullet for Donald Trump, but the president isn't the one that's supposed to be firing the weapon. In this case, the president is the one with coronavirus making the Secret Service agents go in a hermetically sealed SUV and breathe the same air as him. It is outrageous. And the guy saying he would die for the president, he might get an opportunity. I couldn't see him in the video, but when he drove by his supporters, most of them were maskless while they were going to sympathize with Donald Trump, who got coronavirus, for going around maskless.
Well, that's good for him. Good for him. Good, strong American there. So look, you want to put yourself at risk, do you, boo? I don't care. But I do care about people who have to work to protect Donald Trump, and for him to risk their lives for his little publicity stunt is honestly pretty gross. And look, what do I know? I'm not a doctor, but we should hear from a doctor who has some thoughts on this. So here's Walter Reed attending physician James Phillips on Trump's drive-by.
You know, the reality is that this was a dangerous move. There is no medical benefit for this to have taken place. It violates CDC guidelines that come from the president's own administration. Beyond the risk that was clearly taking part, the risk that was imparted upon those Secret Service agents, volunteering or not, it's the message that's sent to other people who are sick that it's okay to go out. We're seeing schools try to reopen, and we're seeing parents who have already sent their kids to school with disease. Yeah. This is the wrong message to be sending.
And Cenk, he actually continued that message today as he was being released from Walter Reed Hospital, of course, being released early because he insisted on it. He tweeted the following: "I will be leaving the great Walter Reed Medical Center today at 6:30 p.m. feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago." Not in any way taking into account that more than 200,000 Americans have died under his watch. And it's incredibly insulting to their family members to put out this type of messaging, not only downplaying COVID-19, but making it appear as though it's like a fountain of youth or something. Like, oh, I feel better. I haven't felt this great in 20 years. It's great. Go ahead and contract COVID. Like, what kind of messaging is that? It's just so pathetic and so terrible. And that's why we're uniquely awful in how we're handling this virus.
So before he got coronavirus, no mask, no nothing, and not a big deal. He gets coronavirus. He and all of a sudden, all the people in the White House put on masks. RebellionPact.com to go see an ad that's already out, and we're putting it in Michigan and 2nd District of Nebraska to make bigger impact. And that's under videos on RebellionPact.com. So but what's amazing is, so he now thinks he's past coronavirus. That's not necessarily true. I'll explain that in a second. So he goes back to, it's no big deal. If it affects me, it's a giant deal, right? If it doesn't affect me before and after, I don't care. And listen, look, conservative schmucks don't understand science. So they don't understand the difference between anecdotal evidence and studies that look at the bigger picture. So anecdotal is, hey, Trump had coronavirus, but he didn't die. So I guess that means no one dies from coronavirus. Oh God, they're so stupid. Oh my God. No, over 200,000 Americans have already died, let alone all the people that have died all across the world from it. It's over 7 million cases. No, a certain percentage of people die, and you don't know if you're in that percentage. But you have to clarify these things because the president is a schmuck who puts out messages like, hey, don't be afraid of COVID. I feel great. Oh God. And then he goes and hotboxes a couple of Secret Service agents in a car where they can't get out of it. And so now they got, by the way, all those agents that are exposed like that, they then got to get quarantined for 14 straight days. And now this is unprecedented. Secret Service agents leaking to the press going, what's he doing? Is he trying to get us killed? Well, how are we supposed to staff this? He keeps going around everywhere maskless. In the car, at least he had a mask on, even though he was in the same car as them. In the hospital, he's in all sorts of fake rooms. It's a whole nother story we'll get to, where he's going around maskless. When he goes back to the White House, he'll probably be maskless. It's unbelievable how he's endangering people. So
it's not though. It's not though. I mean, this I'm actually amused at like the shock and awe that you're seeing in the media right now. Donald Trump has proven over and over again that his like top characteristic is that he will sacrifice anyone and anything if it benefits him even a little bit. This was nothing more than a publicity stunt. That's it. That's all it was. And for him, the lives of those members of the Secret Service who had to be in that SUV with him, I mean, he hasn't even thought about it. It didn't even cross his mind. He does not care at all. I mean, think about this. Don Jr. was angry that Trump did that. Don Jr. Don Jr. is not some bright, kind, compassionate guy. Don Jr. is usually just as bad as Trump, oftentimes worse in some cases when it comes to the lack of competence. But in this case, according to Gabriel Sherman's reporting at Vanity Fair, Don Jr. is like, what is he doing? Why? These tweets, these early morning all caps tweets, there's dozens of them. He needs to stop immediately. Sources said Donald Trump Jr. is deeply upset at his father's decision to drive around Walter Reed National Military Medical Center last night with members of the Secret Service while he was infected with COVID-19. One Republican source told Vanity Fair, Don Jr. thinks Trump is acting crazy. Don Jr. has said he wants to stage an intervention, but Jared and Ivanka keep telling Trump how great he's doing. Don said, I'm not going to be the only one to tell him he's acting crazy. So Don Jr. acknowledges his father's acting crazy, but he's too afraid to approach him on his own. But he also can't get his siblings to do anything about it either.
So it sounds like an episode of Succession. I'm not going to tell the old man he's crazy, right? He's going to fire me, and you guys and the others are like, I'm not doing it. I just care about myself. Well, for the Ivanka and Jareds of the world, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So endangering good old dad who gave us whatever little money we have and power that we have just to keep his favor, sure, who cares? So I can't believe Don Jr. is a fraction more decent than the rest of the Trump children. Okay, so but now one of the reasons he's concerned is dexamethasone is a steroid that Donald Trump is taking. It's a very serious steroid, and one you only give if your condition normally, if your condition in coronavirus is quote severe and critical. Now, my guess is that he is taking that prematurely because he overruled a doctor and said, "Hit me with everything you got." So that is not something. If he's going back to the White House, he should not be taking that steroid. If he's taking the steroid, he shouldn't be going back. You make up your mind. You're either severe and critical and should stay in the hospital, or you're fine and you don't need to take that. And in fact, it might do you damage if you're fine and you're taking it prematurely. But Trump's not a very bright guy, as you all know. So, but the thing that steroid does is it can make your mental faculties have issues. Okay, clouds your judgment, makes you potentially emotional. And people that have been on it are like, what? One, I believe she was a doctor. She wrote in, when I was on that medication a while back, she's like, I couldn't be the president of my cat, let alone the whole country. So, and I took a very different steroid, but a powerful one 20 years ago when I had a medical condition. And I remember being super emotional. And so the steroids clearly have an effect on your personality. When people start talking about the 25th Amendment based on the fact that he's taking that and maybe Pence should be in charge for a day or two, Trump's like, hell no way, I'm in charge. Who cares? Bush handed off to Cheney a couple of times. It's not a big deal, but he's too egotistical and unintelligent to be able to understand. Now he's going back to the White House. I believe there's around 11 cases of people inside the White House that already have it, including Kayleigh McEnany now, and including his campaign manager, and the list goes on, right? So, in fact, Alex Desliba used Super Chat to say nations have as many COVID cases as the White House. Hong Kong had 11, Australia had 13. Alex, that's a brilliant point. That's why I love doing the show with you guys. Okay, so he's going back into that kind of dangerous situation. And guys, last thought on it, and I did a whole video about this, but if you're over medicating, that also creates a problem for you. And look, this is speculative, but people who are addicted to things can't wait to be not supervised 24/7. They've got to get back to their stash, okay? I don't know that. I'm just saying he is rushing back to the White House, and I don't know that it's safe for him. But that one's on him. Everybody he infects, I feel horrible for. But if he's putting himself in bigger danger to do photo ops and to get back to the White House for whatever reason, he's risking himself. And most importantly, he can get a blood clot. And then if he's not at the hospital, he's in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Something to think about as we take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump argues that, maybe I'm better suited to lead the country because I have more experience than Biden now that I've gotten COVID. Yeah, they're making that argument. We'll be right back.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Back.
All right, back on the Young Turks. First of all, don't forget, you got to vote. Okay, so tyt.com/vote gets you that information. We're just trying to be helpful. tyt.com/vote. Now, don't forget our fundraising campaign. It's super important. tyt.com/go. In fact, I'm gonna read a super chat that's questioning us about it. And I wanna answer that question. Wavy Purple asked, love you TYT, but 200,000 a month, you guys should at least be able to do a 2-hour main show. Are you guys ever gonna go back to that? A lot of news right now. So guys, we're gonna try to get back in the studio real soon. And then we're gonna go to a 2-hour show. There is mainly safety issues that we're concerned about and have been concerned about throughout. Have we been overly careful? It's possible that we have, but better that than being less than careful. So please bear with us, but it is coming soon, and I appreciate your concern. All right, let me actually go to some new subscribers on Twitch, because we're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/TYT. Standard Deviation, SS Schwarble, Cuckoo Chutlu, Deflated Brady, Oze the Yellow, Yerman Zabit, Scheiser 59, Atheist God 666, Telegram Unlimited, Sofa King, and Emily Blackwelder gifted subs. You guys are all amazing. Thank you for watching and participating on Twitch. I really appreciate it. And these are, and then I want to go to a couple of comments from our member section, tyt.com/join to get these comments read. Meg with a funny one. She said, did you hear Donald Trump also does not have an anus? In reference to their outrageous lies and how they compare to North Korean propaganda. Jack said, so third is the new first, says the Secret Service has been charged to take a bullet for Trump, but Trump can't even take a nap for them. I really hope the Secret Service agents are healthy. I right there with you, brother. Progressive Pirate says the roid rage president. Yeah, but he has been all along. That's why I thought his all cap tweets didn't sound like they were on steroids. They sounded like they were on Trump. And then finally, here's the new folks who just signed up by hitting the join button below on YouTube. Doug Psychora, Happy Warrior Upgraded, Brittany Christine, Caprica 2267, Stick 187, Dawn Palacios, Cassie Chapman, Charlie Herbst, Joyce Morris, Sheila Styling, Jeremy Knox, Big Meanie, Tamara Thomas, and Melba Ybarra. You guys are all amazing. We do the show together. Thank you. Keep it going by hitting that join button. All right, Anna, what's next?
In an effort to spin news that Donald Trump did in fact contract coronavirus, the campaign is trying to make it seem as though it's actually a good thing because Trump now has a lived experience that makes him somehow more qualified than his opponent, Joe Biden, who was actually smart and savvy enough to avoid contracting the virus. Here's Donald Trump's campaign aide making the case on a recent interview on Fox News.
Will we see changed messaging when it comes to the coronavirus, and will it move more to a forefront of the president's messagings and key issues?
Well, firsthand experience is always going to change how someone relates to something that's been happening. The president has coronavirus right now. He is battling it head on as toughly as only President Trump can. And listen, that of course that's going to change the way that he speaks of it, because it'll be a firsthand experience. He has experience as commander in chief. He has experience as a businessman. He has experience now fighting the coronavirus as an individual. Those firsthand experiences, Joe Biden, he doesn't have those.
No, this is actually great news. I think this is fantastic news, and the Biden campaign should immediately re-implement every single negative campaign ad that they had suspended as soon as Donald Trump announced that he did in fact test positive for COVID. Rather than immediately folding and shooting himself in the foot, Biden should continue on with the campaign strategy that he had in the very first place, which was don't ever talk about policy or what you're going to give people. Just talk about how awful Donald Trump is. Why abandon that campaign strategy when Donald Trump's campaign has continued attacking him, even though Donald Trump is stupid enough to contract that virus while he's president of the United States and has every single imaginable resource at the palm of his hands? Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two, 60% of Americans, according to a new CNN poll, disapprove of how Donald Trump has handled coronavirus. That number jumps up to 69% when it comes to female voters. And the numbers are actually incredibly high among elderly voters as well. And remember, that makes up a pretty significant portion of Trump's base.
Yeah, so first of all, I know this is a small thing, but she said he's handling coronavirus and getting better as only Donald Trump can. Why? Like that's such a, you know why that bothered me? Because it makes it sound like people who passed away from coronavirus just weren't as tough as Donald Trump. That's not how disease works. And so, and honestly, I know it's a pet peeve of mine, but it's like when people talking about being really strong in fighting cancer, the people who died from cancer didn't die because they were too mentally weak. And so it's a small thing, but it's grating on the nerves. And I know people usually don't mean harm by it. The Trump people probably do mean harm. Oh, he's superhuman. Oh my God, he's amazing. Only Donald Trump cannot die from coronavirus. If that's the case, we should all be really, really worried. Anyway, on to the important part here. Anna, you're right. That means that Biden should not do the unilateral disarmament that Democrats are famous for and that he's in the middle of doing. That's why Rebellion PAC stepped in and did a tough ad about Trump, because Biden said he wouldn't. I mean, it's ridiculous. So rebellionpac.com, go check that out. But Anna, I'm worried about the opposite. Democrats. I mean, there isn't anything that Republicans do where they don't think like, should we copy that? They're holding a Bible. Why don't we hold a Bible? They say tax cuts. Why don't we say tax cuts? They say bigger spending on defense, even though it makes no sense. Why don't we say it, right? So when they say, Biden doesn't have any firsthand experience with coronavirus, I wouldn't be surprised if Democrats were like, all right, let's give it to Biden and see how it turns out. Now, look, I'm exaggerating. I know they're not going to do that. No one is that preposterously dumb, not even Democratic strategists. But at the same time, I am worried that they're going to try to respond to nonsensical points like that.
No, I'm not worried about what you just mentioned, but I am worried that Biden is going to refuse to change course back to what his strategy was in the first place. Because Biden, because of like everything he's emphasized during his campaign, is now backed up into a corner. Because if you're not willing to talk about the fundamental policies that people desperately need right now, like Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, and all of that. And you're just gonna focus on how Donald Trump is the boogeyman, he's awful, he's terrible, I'm the better president, or I'm the better option to be president. Well, what are you gonna do if you're gonna suspend these negative ads? Like, what is left, right? Like, what is left? So I really do think that he needs to change course and not give Donald Trump an inch. This is actually a perfect opportunity for Biden to politicize what's happening with Trump's positive COVID test. Not talk about how great it is, but specifically talk about how Donald Trump is unable to keep the country safe and he's unable to keep his own White House safe from this virus. That's how incompetent he is. But I'm not hearing that messaging from Biden right now.
Yeah, so first of all, he hasn't spent all ads, just the negative ads, so-called, right? But you should always think about it in terms of what would the Republicans do from a political hardball perspective. From a policy perspective, never think about it that way, okay? Unfortunately, the Democrats do it in reverse. When they see Republican policies, they're like, great, let's adopt that. Republicans' political strategies that help them win all those elections, let's not do that, okay? So what would Republicans do in a similar situation? First of all, Trump hasn't suspended his negative attack ads. So what are we doing unilateral disarmament for? Are you insane? So second of all, do you think Trump would suspend his negative ads if Biden got coronavirus? There's a 0% chance of that, and everyone knows it. Third of all, what Trump would do and what the Republicans would do if Biden got sick was, you see that jackass doesn't know how to responsibly handle coronavirus. We can't have him be president. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is a mega god who never got coronavirus. That's why he's better equipped to handle it. You see how responsible he is. Biden is the most irresponsible senile guy there is. You know they would say that. Everyone on the planet knows they would say that. But yet the Democrats are like, no, patty cakes, patty cakes, patty. The democracy's on the line. We don't have time for your patty cakes.
Totally agree. Well, we're gonna take a break, but when we come back, we have some more critique when it comes to Democrats, especially since there's now an opening for them to block the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett into the Supreme Court. I'll give you the details of that and more when we.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Return.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Remember, our sponsors are also helping us get through this epidemic, and they've stuck with us, and they're all progressive, otherwise I wouldn't be telling you. And aspiration.com/TYT is a great example of that. They're planting trees, they're helping the planet. They don't put your money in fossil projects. So it's a good place to keep your money instead of the dirty banks. Aspiration.com/TYT. Now I want to go to you guys. Hammer Dan writes in, having 18 to 24 medical staff devoted exclusively to your medical care and your medical care only means 45 is fighting this disease like only he can. But given a choice, I'd bet on a lot of volunteers to be next in line for that protocol. So that's exactly what Brett Ehrlich just said during the break too. Yeah, only like he can, because he's got 25 medical professionals looking after him with all the best products. Perpendicular Time writes in, this is the member section. As much as I missed the longer show and the original post game, I'm very happy the money from my membership is keeping everyone at TYT afloat without risking their lives. TYT lives its values. If they were being cavalier with the well-being of its staff and community, that would be such a reneging of those values and the trust we have in them. I'd seriously consider ending that membership. So thank you so much, guys. Your membership carries us. There's no question about that. And so does TYT.com/go. Let's check in on that thermometer real quick. And I love your messages of support. It really appreciate it. Oh, there we are, 21,597. It'd be great to get to 22,000 by the end of the show. Every dollar makes a difference. Quick shout out to the folks on YouTube who just signed up for membership. The Highest Generation, Dixon Gonzalez, Duncan Hume, Gabby Mathis, Mandeep Dalawal, Humberto Moriera, Jeffrey Dingle, Devin Smith, and Little Boxes. And then a couple of super chats here. Yasser Lamasugar says, keep up the wonderful reporting, Anna and Cenk. Love the conversation with Noam Chomsky, by the way. That's why I tell you to check out the interviews before the show. Interviews start at 5:30. Great one with Noam Chomsky today. And speaking of today, Jenna Whitney says, voted today. Excellent, way to go. Keep on voting. All right, Anna.
All right. Now that a number of Republican senators from the Senate Judiciary Committee have tested positive for coronavirus, Democrats could actually have an effective strategy to block the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett into the Supreme Court. Will they be strong or will they be dumb and feckless?
One of my prayers is that the Republicans will take back their party.
Things keep dripping out, drip, 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 and the truth comes out.
So let me give you the details on what's going on. As we know, Donald Trump and a number of White House officials have tested positive for coronavirus, but there are senators who have tested positive as well following Donald Trump's Rose Garden announcement of his nomination of Amy Coney Barrett. And also there was that fundraiser in New Jersey. People aren't wearing masks, they're hanging out, they're spreading the virus. And so the coronavirus cases that could prove most problematic for the GOP's chances of confirming Barrett are a trio of Republican senators: Mike Lee of Utah, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Lee and Tillis, who both serve on the Judiciary Committee, were at the White House last Saturday and later reported testing positive for the virus, while Johnson said in a statement that he had been exposed to the virus in DC later in the week. Now, let's take a look at what the makeup of the Senate is. As you guys all know, Republicans do have a slim majority in the Senate. They have control of the Senate 53-47, but two of their members, Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, have said they oppose holding a vote to confirm a Supreme Court justice before the election. The Senate isn't expected to hold a final vote until the end of the month. But were Lee, Tillis, and Johnson to be absent, Republicans wouldn't have the majority to approve her without the support of Collins and Murkowski. Okay, so that's if she comes out of the Judicial Committee, the Senate Judicial Committee, and they have a floor vote on her confirmation. But it might not even get that far because of the fact that two of these Republicans serve in that committee and are sick. So let me just talk about how this is gonna impact the committee if Democrats play their cards right. So first off, the Senate is taking a 2-week recess because Mitch McConnell wants everyone to stay away since the virus is spreading. Now, the crucial step for Republicans is likely not the hearings, but the committee vote, as I mentioned, which requires senators to be physically present to achieve a quorum, according to Sarah Binder, an expert on congressional procedure at the Brookings Institution. If Lee and Tillis weren't there, Democrats could boycott the hearing and block the vote. I have more details, but Cenk, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so this is the bare minimum that Democrats could do. So you ask for a quorum call and then you boycott the Judiciary Committee. You need 12 people for quorum in the Judiciary Committee. And now with 2 Republican senators out, without the Democrats, they only have 10. They cannot make a quorum call. So this is the kind of technical procedures that Republicans would use infinitely to block a Democratic nominee. How do I know that? They already did it. They did technical procedures like this one to block the Supreme Court nominee of Barack Obama for over a year. So now the final vote at the end of that whole process for the full Senate is only a week before the election. So all they got to do is delay for 7 days. So can the Democrats do the bare minimum to get a delay of a week so that we're past the election? Well, it's a 50-50 proposition. So, I mean, I'm being dead serious. Can Democrats do something incredibly simple, and that is the bare minimum? 50-50.
Yeah, I think you're being generous with 50-50, to be honest. Like, I'm so used to being disappointed by the feckless behavior of the Democrats that 50% is too generous. But I will say this, there's still the possibility that even if Democrats play this right and they block Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation before the election, there's still the lame duck session. And the argument that I keep seeing from political analysts is that, well, I mean, they wouldn't want to move forward with a confirmation during the lame duck session because that's going to reflect poorly on Republicans. Like, I can't believe that that's still the type of analysis that people are getting paid to share with the world. Like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They don't care. They don't care. Clearly they don't care. I mean, Lindsey Graham was on the record twice saying, oh, you can hold it against me if I do it. But I'm just saying, in an election year, we shouldn't vote on a Supreme Court nominee, even if it's a Republican like Donald Trump nominating this person in his the final year of his first term. He was a hypocrite. No one cares. Sure, it hurt him a little bit in his Senate race, but at the end of the day, they understand power and they're going to do what's necessary to accumulate power, period.
Yeah. So I hear you on that, no question. And I always assumed that they would do it in the lame duck session. But it looks like now they're about to get landslided. So the Biden's back up to about a 9-point lead nationally. And all the swing states, the advantages to the Democrats. So if they get absolutely obliterated and they do it anyway, well, that does create another problem for them, because then at that point, it'll be exceedingly clear that the American people did not want them to replace the Supreme Court seat. And if they do it anyway, at some point, the Republican brand gets so badly damaged that, how many elections can they lose? Because those guys care about their own power. Those Republican senators care most about their own power. And so if they lose their election, and they're in a lame duck session and they all got obliterated, they might get bitter and go, so what? Oh yeah, well then we'll capture the Supreme Court for 30 years, see how you like it. That's very possible. On the other hand, the McConnells of the world might say, look, guys, we're down to 47 senators. If we keep going like this, we're gonna be down to 40. And we're not going to have any power at all, turn around. It would only be if it affected McConnell's own power position. So that's the best that we have to hope for. And remember, if she's already seated before the election, she could help decide the election by stopping the counting of the votes. So delaying it by a week is so important. So now that they know that that's possible, Tom Cotton went on TV, Republican senator from Arkansas, and said, we'll wheel people in to personally vote if they have to. And they do. In order to break a quorum call, you have to vote in person in the Senate. So basically, Cotton is saying, I care so much about getting a pro-life judge in that I'll have people break the quarantine and come in person and potentially kill his fellow senators to be pro-life.
Yeah, so two things to say about that. Number one, it's sad that Democrats don't have that kind of fight in them. I'm not saying that I would want them to risk people's lives, but we can't get them to do the bare minimum when it comes to representing their constituents. That's point number one. My next point is, I forgot what my next point is. Damn it. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So look, you're right, Anna, about the disproportionate situation we have here in Congress. One side's like, should we ask for the thing that we have a right to ask for and then just not show up? I mean, can we do as little as not showing up? I don't know, let's debate it, right? The other side is, we will wheel in dying senators and kill off more of your senators to make sure that we grab power. Now, that kind of uneven playing field, no wonder the Democrats get mauled. And that is because, as I've told you countless times, the Democrats are paid to lose. The donors fund really strong Republicans for tax cuts and deregulation, and they fund really weak Democrats so that they could surrender to Republicans under all situations and go, oh, well, there's nothing we could do. So, but you guys know ahead of time now, if the Democrats blow this, it was totally their fault.
And by the way, so I remember what I wanted to say. Republicans do fight for what they want. There's no question. And they'll stop at almost nothing to accomplish whatever their political agenda is. But keep in mind that when it comes to doing what's right for the American people, especially during a pandemic, when you have an 8.4% unemployment rate today, right? The numbers were higher earlier, but it's still incredibly high today. Republican senators aren't getting together and fighting tooth and nail to ensure that there's another round of stimulus, but they will fight. They will risk their own lives in order to vote in favor of confirming a conservative Supreme Court nominee. So just understand where their priorities are, especially when they give you that sweet talk about how they care about the economic situation for Americans. They don't care. A lot of Donald Trump's, chest thumping today was more about ensuring that the economy and the stock market doesn't take a hit as a result of his own incompetence from contracting coronavirus. They only care about how their actions impact their own pocketbooks, their own power, and their own agenda. When it comes to doing the right thing as public servants, that's what they're supposed to be. They'll never do the right thing. They never do. They've always abandoned the American people, and we're experiencing that right now.
Okay, so we're about to do a post game for the members, and in that, we're going to talk about all sorts of wild conspiracy theories on Donald Trump's coronavirus. Just a fun little segment, and then what happened to the Proud Boys online is awesome. If you haven't seen that story about how they got played, you will absolutely love it. And unfortunately, the Republicans are already thinking about or finding a way to dramatically affect the elections in Iowa. So what they're doing with the court system in Iowa to block people from voting is disgusting. We're gonna explain that. TYT.com/join gets you all the benefits of membership. You could also become a member on YouTube by hitting the join button below. $2 level gets you membership, supports the show. We see your badges, we see your names. The $5 level gets you the post game we're about to do. The $10 level gets you all of our videos, no matter what. So hit the join button below if you're watching on YouTube. Everybody else, TYT.com/join. And thank you to everybody who helped and participated in TYT.com/go, which is really important in this time to make our progressive voice stronger. And then finally, I want to read a super chat for you guys, which was awesomely hilarious. In the last segment, we shared Republicans saying that Biden can't understand coronavirus as well because he didn't have it, unlike Trump. So Carla Baku wrote in, so I guess Bernie's heart attack made him more qualified than all the other candidates who didn't have a heart attack. I love that. My guess is that the mainstream media would not have accepted that answer, nor would anyone else. And Morning Demon and Danica Pantic, thank you for joining on Twitch. We love you. We'll see you in the postgame.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.